I didn't sleep. I watched the motel clock and tried not to blink at 10:59. The air conditioner clicked like an old jaw, the blinds hummed with traffic, and I counted my breaths because counting was the only thing that I still knew how to do. I told myself I'd move when the minute turned, that I'd stretch or drink water or look away, but I didn't. And somewhere between the last second and the one after it, the room tensed and the hair on my arms rose. I didn't need to turn to know he was here. "On time," Mephisto said, already halfway through a mouthful of sunflower seeds, shells rattling in a paper cup. He wore a navy blazer, a badge clipped to his belt that said nothing useful, and that grin he saved when he decided to enjoy himself at my expense. "Good to see you embracing punctuality. Very on brand for where you're going." "Oh, just please don't send me back to some, IRS or a demonic church." "Corrections, actually." He arched a brow at the red folder on the table, my file, then tapped the motel clock with one finger. The second hand stuttered, held, then snapped forward twice. "He sees everyone personally. Don't be late for your own sentencing." "Who?" "Oh, one of the wardens down there," he said, like that should have answered everything. He tilted the bag of seeds toward me. I didn't take any. He shrugged and ate another handful. "Polite, efficient, and he always has two pets who call themselves guards, and they do things pretty well down there, for the most part, until the warden kept keeping souls past their due date." He watched me for a moment, the showman slipping, the salesman fading. "All right, one reminder. Down there, days can last quite a while. You might be there longer than you'd hope. Got any advice? Keep your head, keep your promises, and keep moving." He dusted his hands, straightened the blazer, and looked around the room as if to check for witnesses. The grin returned, bright and wrong-looking. He stepped in close and set a hand on my shoulder like a priest about to deliver last rites. "Smile!" The room folded. The bed, the clock, the cup of seed shells, all slid out of itself like someone had tugged a sheet away and the world forgot how to be a room. Heat rose through the floor. The smell changed. Bleach, metal, old steam. For a heartbeat, I saw the motel again. Then it blinked, and hell took the light. I hit concrete on my knees. Sirens didn't wail, they vibrated. A tone that settled in the bones and told you to keep your head down. Turnstiles loomed ahead. Not metal pipes, but jawed gates that clicked when they chewed through the air. The ceiling was a low canopy of grating and steam. Signs shouted rules in every language you could imagine. Lines of prisoners moved in tight files, wrists stamped, eyes hollowed out by repetition. The place smelled like wet rock, disinfectant, and something bitter that made the throat close. I had arrived at the gatehouse of a prison that didn't end. 2 guards met me before I could stand. The man carried keys the size of fists and a nightstick worn smooth where his grip had polished it. The woman carried chains whose links held tiny scratches, like prayers someone had carved with a fingernail and no one had answered. "Fresh," the man said, not asking. He grabbed my arm and hauled me up, and the woman stamped my wrist with a cold iron seal that burned invisible and then showed itself. Pending, in block letters that looked like they were carved into my skin. "Move," she said. They marched me through the turnstiles. The teeth closed behind us with a sound that decided things. Past the jaws, The hall widened into an intake floor painted with lanes and numbers, a human sorting machine dressed as an airport. I went where I was pushed, shoes off, metal tray slid across the counter, hands on a rail while a demon with a ledger read my name off a page that didn't exist until he said it out loud. "Occupation?" he asked. I didn't answer. "Occupation," he repeated. "Pending," I said. That got me a glance. He stamped another word under the first, and I felt the burn all the way down to my elbow. "Intake shower," the woman said, and I moved again. The shower wasn't water. It was ash blown through vents at force, warm and staticky, clinging to hair and skin and the back of my tongue. Under it, men shivered and scrubbed and came out looking the same, only more gray. The guards watched from a catwalk while clerks below called out times. No clocks on the walls. But they seemed to whisper. The clocks that were there. "Time served. 6,399 days," one speaker said. Another, "Review in. Pending." A third, "Parole. Expired." A man in the next stall laughed and didn't stop until he fell over. They put me in a chain with 6 others, wrists together, ankles free enough to walk, shoulders tight. We shuffled past small windows cut into thick walls, eyes peering from either side. "Fresh meat," someone said. "Trade your shoes? Name, what's your name?" The sound skittered along the chain, and I kept my eyes on the floor. The woman guard, the one with the chains, paced behind us with a clipboard she didn't write on. "Sable," the man in front of me whispered, not to me, but to himself. The man with the keys heard him. "And I'm Varro," he said without turning. "You'll be using those names a lot." The chain stopped at a glass hall that looked out over everything. Blocks stacked in rings around an open void. Catwalks stitched between them, yards of cinder beyond. Towers with floodlights like unblinking eyes. Between us and the view sat a door that didn't belong in this century. Wood dark with oil and age. Brass plate, private. Varro knocked once, and the door opened under his knuckles like it wanted to be helpful. "Initial placements," Sable said. "Remember your manners." The office was quiet. A wide desk of dark wood without clutter. Shelves with ledgers bound in red and black. A low lamp casting clean light. Behind the desk, a man stood to greet us. He was older than me, hair going silver at the temples, suit pressed, shoes clean. His eyes took in everything without lingering. "Thank you, officers," he said, and his voice carried without raising. The guards, Varro and Sable, stepped back to a polite distance and watched from there. "You're the warden," I said. "I am. And you are?" "Pending." His gaze flicked to my wrist. "Sit." I didn't, and he waited amused. "You were told we speak with every new arrival. We do. It shortens misunderstandings. You will go where you should, not where you want." I took a seat. He asked me 3 questions. "What do you regret?" he asked. Not "what have you done," but "what do you regret?" I thought on blood and glass and a girl with my last name who flinched when I raised my voice. "Plenty." "Pick one." I did. I said it out loud. He didn't write it down. "Who would you save first if the world were on fire?" "My daughter." He nodded like I had given the only answer that made sense. "Do you believe in second chances?" he asked at last. I thought about Malric's ledger and Lucian's strings and Mephisto's grin, and I said, "I believe in the person you become after the second chance." "All right. Observation in G tier. We'll review you after a period. If you conduct yourself cleanly, there are pathways. Out? I asked. People don't tend to leave here, my friend. He rose and the room rose with him. Varro touched my shoulder without asking, and Sable unlocked the door without looking. And I was marched back into the glass hall as if I had agreed to all of it. On the way out, I looked down at the blocks again. Some men paced, some slept, some stared at nothing. In the yard, a group stood in a circle passing something hand to hand. A guard tower light swept over them and they didn't scatter. They were already caught. G-tier was a ring of cells stacked 3 high, open to a central well where benches faced a television that showed a channel called Programming and very rarely changed. The catwalk rails were worn smooth by hands that held them too long. The floor shone where boots had traced the same routes. The smell of bleach tried to cover the other smells and failed. Varro unlocked my cell and shoved me in with a palm flap between my shoulder blades. "Count in 20, he said. "Eat when the cart comes. Don't trade. That's it." And they left. The cell had a bed, a shelf, and a toilet. Someone had scratched tallies into the paint in rows of 5 until they ran out of wall. I touched the last 4 and didn't make a 5th. The noise from the tier rolled in waves. Talk, the rattle of cups on bars, laughter to an extent, and a cough that didn't stop. Across from me, a man stared at the television and said the same sentence every 30 seconds, as if he just thought of it. I sat and let my pulse slow and waited for the count. The speaker crackled. A tone went out and everyone stood. They counted us while the officers paced and walked back and forth on the catwalk and marked clipboards. When it ended, the block exhaled in one breath. A meal came in metal trays pushed on a rattling cart. Slop, bread, something that I don't even know what it is. Nor do I want to know. It is funny that they still ate in hell. I ate because hunger didn't care where I was. The food tasted of metal and fuel. It did its job. Lights out came late and wasn't dark. The glow from the television bled through my eyelids. Somewhere a man whispered names like a prayer list. Somewhere else a laugh turned into a sob and back into a laugh again. I finally fell asleep. Morning didn't come. It simply wasn't night, however to explain that. The speaker told us to stand and we did. The day started and then it started again. Work crews went past with mops. Then the same crews did again. A man on the tier above counted backward from 50 and never reached 40. Sable, one of the guards, pulled an old man from his bunk by the collar because his voice had risen during count. And the block went silent at once with the kind of silence that makes you uncomfortable. I kept my head down and my eyes open. I learned who swung first and who flinched. I learned the ins and outs of this unit. Who to talk to, who to trust, as much as you could trust someone in jail. By the end of what felt like a week, men looked toward me when a door jammed or a gate got stuck because I had proven myself a bit handy. Sable and Varro proved themselves to be a bit demented, taking pleasure in the inmates' misfortune. The warden never came to the block. He didn't need to. You could almost feel his presence in the schedules and the way the air changed right before count. In the posters that said, "Work hard, freedom comes to those who wait." Which is exactly what Mephisto said that the warden didn't do. The warden denied you your freedom, even when it was time to be released. Now, to be released into what? Who knows? I mean, we're already in hell. And during my few weeks that I've been here, I had slowly begun to stoke the flames of rebellion. To plant the seeds in everyone's mind of overthrowing the warden and the guards here. You know, you get a feel for these things after a while. Who to talk to, who to tell what, and the atmosphere in here, the mindset of G-Unit was slowly beginning to change. I mean, hopefully not too slow. I mean, the weeks that I felt here, I mean, how do you explain time in a place that doesn't actually have time? In a place that doesn't actually have morning? The weeks felt like years. I don't know how else to put it. On the 5th week, we barricaded the unit. Varro came down the catwalk, all teeth and keys. "Off," he barked, swinging for my ribs. He hit me, but I grabbed his arm and pulled him through the line that we had made, through the blockade of bodies, and it was only Varro at this point. After we had pulled him through the line, someone took a makeshift shiv and stabbed Varro straight into the neck. He bled out. His soul left his body and slammed into me, into my chest from the inside. I staggered. I held the line. Staple came running down the hall with 5 more guards in tow. They hit our barricade like waves on a shelf. They rebounded hard, all of them kicking and pounding and groaning with their riot gear. Overhead, one of the inmates took out a makeshift rope, threw it around Sable's neck, and pulled her down. She hit the ground hard. You could see the look of confusion on her face as she didn't know what was happening from the blow. After that, they tightened the noose around the neck and pulled Sable through the line. The guards couldn't get to her in time. The inmates stood there kicking and beating on her until she went unconscious. And after that, some giant in the unit, some guy, 7 feet tall nearly, picked up his foot and brought it crashing down onto her skull. I heard a wet thud. I could almost feel it. And after that, her soul left her body and rocketed straight into mine, almost knocking me down flat on my ass. I got my bearings, went over to her body, tried not to look at her head. Hard to feel sympathy for her, but what a way to go. I searched her body and I found a knife on her hip. I took it. After her death, things changed. The guards, fear filled their face, but that fear on their face made the inmates seem to shiver. Vibrations, footsteps, steps so heavy they shook the building. Down the hallway loomed the impossibly large shadow of the warden. After this, the guards scattered, the inmates scattered. I ran back to a random cell. A couple minutes later, all you could hear were the warden's footsteps and his breathing. I heard doors ripped off of hinges, shouts of pain and misery. And then he found me, alone in a cell that didn't even belong to me. He immediately recognized what it was that I had. 2 souls inside you. And how do they feel? Like pain, I said. They weren't meant for you. Come on. Hand them over and we can all look past this. I can't. I made a deal. I can't. Then I guess I'll have to take it. The warden walked towards me. I didn't have time to react. He came towards me, hand outstretched, and wrapped immediately around my neck. He lifted my body a foot off of the ground, a fully outstretched arm, and my vision started to blur. It started to go dark at the edges, until I remembered the knife. I reached down into my pocket, pulled the knife out, and in one quick, swift motion, jammed the knife up under his jaw. His eyes opened in shock and surprise. His grip loosened, not all the way, but just enough. I took the knife out and jammed it in again, and again, and again, and my fifth time, straight into his neck into the jugular. And that did it. The look of surprise on his face turned to fear. He dropped me and fell to the floor. His soul didn't drift. It drove into me. 3 weights fought for room. 3 forces so powerful I don't even know how to comprehend them, and Mephisto takes these all in every time. Who knows how much he has inside of him? Inmates shouted. Voices pleaded. Souls fought inside my very body. I pressed my head to the concrete behind me and said his name once. Mephisto. The wall behind me opened like paper. Heat pulled, and the motel took me. 3 souls clawed at the inside of my ribs. I grabbed the bed frame and tried to breathe, but I couldn't get anything in. Carpet burned my palms, and the room smelled like old cleaner and cheap coffee. I rolled to my back, finally able to take a breath, and the 3 of them rolled inside of me. Pressure under my sternum, heat in my back, a cold ache at the base of my skull. Varro, Sable, and the Warden. They were like weights inside me. Every breath came with a hitch. I crawled to the bed and got halfway up before a spasm folded me. The dagger in my hand clattered on the floorboards and went quiet. Out, I said, but no one answered. The air shifted. The light by the door warmed a shade, and Mephisto stepped in like he'd only been standing on the other side of it, debating whether to knock or not. In charcoal suit this time, white shirt, a tie bar shaped like a key. He took in the scene. Me on my knees, knife on the carpet, the shake I couldn't hide, and blew out a soft sigh. Not up to keeping them, I would say. Take 'em now. He crouched in front of me and looked at my face the way a mechanic looks at an engine. For a second, the grin went away. All 3 of them. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, he said. He slid 2 fingers under my shirt like he was straightening the fabric, then pressed them to the center of my chest. His hand went warm. The heat moved inward. Breathe. Steady. In and out. I did. On the 4th breath, something shifted under his fingers, and he pinched like he'd found a splinter. A thread of blue smoke unspooled from my sternum and curled around his wrist. It fought. He made a small sound in his throat. Part effort, part appreciation, and drew. The first soul slid free with a snap I felt in my molars. The pressure behind my eyes eased. Varro. Tastes like keys and bad overtime. He tapped his tongue with the tip of his finger, considering, then breathed the soul in. No theatrics, no thunder, just a long, controlled inhale, until the blue was gone and the room felt 1 degree lighter. 2 more. Don't rush me. This is artisanal. He pressed again, this time higher, and the cold ache in my skull sparked. He pinched and pulled, and Sable came out thinner and paler, stretched like a thought you couldn't quite finish. There you are. Ever the professional. She would have been good in HR. A shame. The last one didn't want to move. He felt like a fist in my ribs, slow and stubborn, pulsing with his own rhythm. Yeah, this part might sting a little. He pressed. The room narrowed. My vision sparked at the edges. He dug, not hard, but sure, and I felt something finally come loose. A column of blue flame rose, brighter and denser and threaded with darker streaks like ink and water. The warden held tight, even as he left. Mephisto's jaw set. "Always with the paperwork," he said. And then the column bent and went into him, and the light in the room dipped and came back. My chest went hollow. Not empty, but clear. I lay back on the carpet and heard my heart find a steady beat without three strangers counting with it. Sweat cooled on my neck. My hand stopped shaking enough that I could pick up the dagger and set it on the dresser. Mephisto stood, rolled his shoulders like someone who just lifted a heavy box, and wanted to pretend it was nothing. All right, not bad, champ. Why didn't you come down this time? He thought about lying, but he didn't. I couldn't. Can't step foot in that damn hellhole the warden made. Anyways, that's 8 souls now. You're making good time. And because you picked up so many this time, I'm actually going to give you a temporary leave. You have 1 week here in the mortal world to do as you wish. Have fun. Mephisto disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving only sulfur and ash behind. I lay back and stared at the ceiling until my breath stopped scraping. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the air and the sound of the clock doing what clocks do. I said Jessica's name out loud once, then again. I kept saying it until the motel felt like a place I could stand up in. I showered. And in the shower came the thoughts that only come during a long, nice, warm shower. What would I do with my time? A whole week? I'd only been given a day at a time so far. And then I'd never left the motel. The ash ran down the drain and didn't come back up. When I came out, the room was clear, the knife on the nightstand, and that folder from my last collection. I stretched, sat at the table, and stared at the red folder without opening it. Then I pushed it aside and ate whatever the motel called food. When I was done, I picked the folder back up. I wondered what I would do with my week. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted to do, but didn't know if I had the strength to do it. Jessica. My family. I watched the clock. I didn't count. I didn't have to. I knew the time would come when Mephisto would be back in my room either way.